Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to be reviewing the Pat McGrath Skin Fetish Sublime Perfection Foundation. I have mine in the shade Medium Deep 23 and I am wearing it today. So if you're interested in seeing or hearing my thoughts on this foundation, then just keep watching. So Pat McGrath released her first foundation a few months ago, and I feel like when it was released, it was all over YouTube. Everybody was doing a review on it. Everybody was hyped for it. And then as time went on, I saw that a lot of people actually did not like it, or some people loved it. It's kind of like a very polarizing foundation, it seems. So I did purchase it a couple months ago, not initially when it came out, but kind of after the hype had died down a little bit. And I noticed that Pat McGrath is having a sale, and I was very interested in this foundation, but I held off on it because of the price. So when I purchased it, I, just went ahead and formed my own opinions on it, which we'll get into in a second. But first up, let's kind of give you some basics about the foundation. So the foundation is available in 36 shades. I have the shade Medium Deep 23, which is described as medium deep with yellow undertones. Now, I had a hard time finding my shade in this, honestly, because I ordered it online, which is already kind of difficult, but I'm kind of used to ordering my foundations online, so generally I'm a decent picker. But the reason I ordered it online was, number one, because I got the discount through Pat McGrath's website, but also because the closest Sephora that carries this in my area is probably about 45 minutes away. So unless I'm going to that mall for something else, I'm not gonna go all the way out there just to go to Sephora and try this out in person. Now, some of you all, if you have like a big Sephora near you that carries Pat McGrath, then I would definitely recommend going in store as opposed to blind buying it. Even if Pat McGrath runs these sales every so often, so even if you're gonna buy it from Pat McGrath's website, I would definitely recommend going into Sephora and trying a couple shades, because I do feel like the models' pictures and all on the Pat's website can be a bit tricky to find your shade, and the shade numbers don't necessarily go in order from like lightest to darkest. It's a variety of different undertones, but some of the undertones make the shade actually look darker. So to me, it was quite confusing. I'm still not positive that I get the best shade for me, but with a foundation like this, I'm not buying two shades because it's too expensive for that. So let's talk about the price. It's $68. So at the end of this video, I'm gonna tell you whether or not I think it's worth that at the end, after I kind of tell you my other thoughts on it. But it is expensive, so it's kind of to be expected when you're talking about Pat McGrath. I feel like it's right in line with her other prices. So I wasn't that surprised that it was expensive, but this is definitely the most expensive foundation I've ever purchased. So first I'm going to go ahead and show you how it applies, and then I'll come back and talk about the claims and if I agree with them or not. So I didn't apply a primer today. Sometimes I do, but today I'm not using one, and honestly for me, I go back and forth on whether I use a primer or not. I will tell you I've used this foundation with a primer and I think it looks the same. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and just start by shaking this up. This is a very liquidy foundation, so you definitely want to make sure you shake it. I shake all my foundations, but definitely with a more liquidy one, you definitely want to shake it and make sure that it's mixed correctly. I mean, it shouldn't be separating with it being so new, but we don't want to take any chances, right? So it does have a pump, and my pump is not that clean anymore because I've been using this foundation for months now. But I'm just going to pump one squirt out. So that's one pump, and you can see it's very runny. So the downside of that, I would say, is that I have gotten this on my clothes before when I was just like rushing. So you got to be careful with it. But I'm going to do one side with my fingers and then one side with this Sephora number 56 brush, which is the brush I typically use with this foundation. So I'm going to start out with the brush side, I guess. Yeah, I'll start it with the brush side. So even when I do apply it with a brush, I like to dot it on my face with my fingers, just because I feel like that helps get, I don't know, I just prefer to do that. I feel like you use up less product when you do that. Like the brush doesn't soak up as much as opposed to like dipping the brush in and then putting it on your face. So let's go ahead and blend this in. And you can see it blends out really easily. you do have time to work with this foundation. A lot of liquidy foundations that dry down really fast, like for instance the Fenty Beauty, the initial one, the first one they did, that one dries down really fast, so you have to like work really fast with it. But with this one, you do have time to work with it. All right, so that's what one layer looks like with the brush. And let's go ahead and just do one layer with my fingers. And I'm still working off that same pump, that one pump of foundation. And the reason that I prefer my fingers with this is that I feel like it just spreads better. Like I get the most bang for my buck with my fingers. And you'll see like when I'm done what I'm saying, because I used half and half. Alright, so I don't know if you can tell the difference on camera. Hopefully you can, but I just feel like I get a better coverage with my fingers than I do with the brush. And that's probably because the brush is soaking up some product, but I also feel like I don't know, I just feel like this foundation is one that works better with fingers. Like it blends better. So that's typically how I will use it. And then I always keep wipes on my vanity, so afterwards I just wipe my hands off. So I don't mind using foundations with my fingers. It's not my top way, but I definitely do it quite often. So yeah, this is what we're looking like. I guess I will go ahead and put a little bit more on this side because I feel like it looks uneven. It's funny, up until now I never noticed how much more coverage I got from my fingers. Because I always, you know, if I'm doing the brush, I'm doing my whole face generally, but yeah. So I just did like a half a pump. I'm just gonna try to even this out because I feel like my cheeks, where I need the most coverage, looks a bit uneven. Plus I want y'all to see how this builds. So I do have to say that this is a light coverage, but you can see it is building on this side. And it does not look cakey when you build it. So yeah, so you can see this is 2 layers, one with the brush, one with my fingers, and this is 1 layer. Now I do feel like I have a little bit more coverage over here now, but I'm just gonna take like a tiny bit more, still working on this half a pump, and just kind of put it on my cheeks where I feel like, you know, this will look like 2 layers on this side as well. Alright, so from foundation only, this is the coverage that I get, and this is like the highest coverage that I get. I've never been able to build it up more than like this coverage. For me, this looks like medium coverage, and 1 layer looks like light coverage. So if you are a full coverage girl, not saying you can't wear this, but know that you're gonna need to probably set it with powders and all of that. I typically do not set my foundations with powder. When I have set this one, it does make it look a bit more full coverage, especially if I set it with like a colored translucent powder. But for this video, I'm trying to do what I normally do. So I'm not gonna set it today, but this is what it looks like. 2 layers of foundation. And that was 1.5 pumps with no powder. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of my face, and then I'll be back in a few. So this is my finished face. I did apply concealer underneath my eyes, and I set that concealer. I also took a little bit of the leftover powder, not much, but just a little bit, and just tapped my brush right along my eyebrows and my forehead, just because I felt like it was looking a little bit shiny. But I really don't count that as setting my face, because honestly, it was just whatever what was left over after setting underneath my eyes. So it really was like minimal. But sometimes even if you take like a powder brush with no product on it, that can help take away shine. So just a tip, if I'm sure y'all probably knew that, but that's what I did. I did not set anywhere else on my face. I did use powder bronzer, powder blush, and powder highlight. So yes, this is what we're looking like. I do feel like that it gives me a full, or not a full, a good medium coverage, especially now that the rest of my products are applied. And this would definitely be like a going out type look for me, whereas if I just did the 1 pump, that's more of like an everyday look for me. Okay, now that you've seen the demo, let's kind of talk about some of the claims And I'm reading, so hopefully that doesn't bother you guys, but I wanted to make sure that I was actually referring back to what they claim this foundation is supposed to be. So the initial description of this foundation from Sephora's website is that it is a long-wearing, customizable foundation that builds from sheer to medium coverage in a wide range of universal hues, blah, blah, blah. So, long-wearing, let's talk about that. On me, this foundation is long-wearing, but it does not look the same at the beginning of the day as it does at the end of the day. Now, I did not insert a wear test on this foundation today, but I have worn this foundation quite a bit, and I can tell you, when I was wearing this in the warmer months, I'm in Florida, so keep in mind that when I'm talking about warmer months, I'm talking about 90 degrees and up. When I would wear it in the warmer months, I would get super oily, well, super shiny by about the 4th hour, even just wearing it to work. So if your skin is oily, don't expect this to stay matte, especially if you don't set it. Like, if you have oily skin, you would definitely need to set this foundation, and you probably will need to blot at some point during the day. Now, the coverage would remain for me, like it remains for me all day, probably about at least 8 hours. I get the same coverage. However, like I said, the shine will come back, and I have blotted this, and then it'll look like it looked when I first applied it. The other claim that they say in this initial statement is that it can build from sheer to medium coverage, and we kind of already talked about that. I definitely agree. You can definitely do a sheer coverage, like a no makeup look. That this foundation is definitely great for that if that's what you're into. And then, like I'm wearing it today, a medium coverage, and it does not look cakey. I've never went over 2 pumps of foundation with this, but I could imagine that if you went over 2 pumps and you say you go up to 3 pumps, 4 pumps, I never put that much foundation on my face, but if you did, I still don't think it would get cakey just because of the texture of it. It's very lightweight, it's very blendable, and it kind of just melts into your skin. All right, they also claim that this can work for any skin type. And again, I think it could work for any skin type, but you just need to do whatever you need to do to make it work. So if you're oily, you definitely have to set this, like I said, and you probably will have to blot. If you're dry, I think this will work fine for you. You just maybe want to use a hydrating primer. I don't find this foundation to be super hydrating, even though it looks shiny. It's not actually a hydrating foundation. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you have like dry patches or whatever, it doesn't necessarily make them stand out more, but it's not gonna help them. Hopefully that makes sense to you all. The other things that they kind of talk about is some of the ingredients in it. So it says it has unique polymers that provide lasting wear, ultimate smoothness, and a luminous finish. So we already talked about the wear. As far as smoothness, I do think that this foundation helps my skin look more smooth, especially when I'm just doing like a light coverage. And then the luminous finish, that's obvious. Like you can see I'm like shining, 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 shining. I mean, I'm not shining, but I do feel like this foundation gives me that radiance that I personally love. They also claim that this has high purity pigments, treated with amino acids that deliver enhanced wear, a creamy feel, and controlled and easily buildable coverage. I agree. We kind of already talked about all of that. And then the last highlighted ingredient they have on here is diamond core powder, which enhances radiance and skin luminosity and decreases appearance of skin imperfections. And again, I would agree. I do think that it definitely gives a luminosity like we already talked about. And I definitely think it decreases the appearance of skin imperfections, which is pretty much every foundation though, right? Like, how is that different? They also go on to talk about more about the diamond core powder technology. It helps with the texture of the skin. It helps smooth or helps blur the appearance of fine lines and pores and all of that. And I really don't know about that, honestly. I feel like when I wear this, my skin does look more perfected in a pretty natural way. So I guess I could say yeah on that, but I don't know. Sometimes when people put like diamond core, whatever, or gold in your foundation, that automatically makes you think that it should be worth more money. And sometimes I feel like that's more of just a marketing ploy as opposed to actually being beneficial. So that's it for pretty much what they say about the foundation. The other thing I did want to mention is, I know when I was watching reviews of this foundation when it first came out, a lot of people talked about the alcohol content in this foundation, and that alcohol is pretty high up on the list, and they were concerned that it might dry your skin out over time. Look, I don't know how they formulate this product. I honestly don't know what type of alcohol they're using, but I will say for me, I have not noticed any extra dryness, any breaking out of my skin from wearing this foundation. I've been perfectly fine. To me, I haven't noticed anything different than wearing any other foundation. So, and I've worn it like on a day-to-day basis, not every day because I have other foundations, but it is one that I wear quite often. So I have not noticed any difference in my actual skin from wearing it. All right, so let's just go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty. This foundation is $68, and I know you guys are probably wondering if I think it's worth it. And I have to say, I honestly don't think it is. I feel bad saying that because y'all know I like a lot of foundations. And I do really like this foundation. I'm glad I got a chance to try it. But I will tell you, honestly, when I first got this foundation with the 20% off, I first got this foundation and tried it out and wore it, and it was very hot then. I honestly kind of felt like I wanted to send it back. I can't because Pat McGrath does not allow returns if you open her products. But I will say that after I gave it more of a chance and wore it more often, I started falling in love with it. So I do actually really love this foundation. And I think if you have the disposable funds, then you know, go do you. If you have a gift card, try it out. But if we're just solely talking about is it worth $68, I'm gonna go with a no. I just feel like $68 is so much more than most other foundations, like not luxury foundations, but most other, you know, mid-range Sephora foundations. Let's just say that. Most other Sephora foundations go from like $40 to what, like $55, and this is $68. That's a big jump. That's almost $70 for a foundation. Now, I definitely think that if you are the type of person who just wants to wear one foundation and you don't try out a bunch of different things and you just want something that you can wear every day no matter what, then maybe this foundation would be worth it for you because you'll probably actually go through the whole bottle and get your money's worth. And it's something that, like I said, you can wear it very light. You can also build it up to medium. It's not going to be full, but I find that most people in my everyday life are not full coverage foundation people. So like if you are just the average person, not a YouTuber, not a I want my face beat type of person, this might be worth it for you as an everyday foundation. Because like it's very easy to work with. It gives you a natural feel. It will be hard for you to make yourself look cakey. So yeah, I think for those people it may be worth it. For me, it's definitely not worth $68. However, I have been enjoying having it and I do love it. So this is kind of like a mixed review. I like the foundation. I like the finish that it gives. I like that it's long lasting. I like the radiance and luminosity. I like that I can touch this foundation up and it still look good. I just don't like the price tag, honestly. And there's other foundations that I like better. For instance, the Dior Face and Body. To me, that is similar to the Pat McGrath foundation in that you can wear it lightly or you can build it up. You can use it with your fingers, you can use it with your brush, you can use it with a beauty blender. And I just feel like that foundation is customizable and the finish is kind of similar. So if I had to go for one, I would go for that one over this one. I feel like they're too similar to me. They do have different textures, but they both feel like nothing on your face. So that makes them similar as well. So for me, that's probably the main reason I would definitely say that I would not repurchase this, because the Dior Face and Body for me is a much better buy. Like I have 2 shades of that and that was still what? I don't know how much it was. Dior is a high-end brand. I believe Face and Body runs about like $40. So those 2 shades of that almost equal the price of this. So anyway, so I do recommend this foundation. Like, I like it, I enjoy it. I just don't think it's worth the $68. But if you have a gift card or you just have money that you want to spend on it, you know, go do you. I don't think you'll be disappointed as long as you know what you're getting into. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've tried Pat McGrath's foundation and what you think of it, or if it's even on your radar, or you're just not even into like higher end foundations. I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.